Welcome to the First Hebrew Primer, Chapter 9. Let's go ahead and get started with the vocabulary. The first word in the upper right is pronounced Adon, or the plural, Adonim, and it means Lord or Master, masculine noun. There is a variant spelling of this word, Adonai, that's used for the Lord, another title for God. Below that we have Adam, which is both a personal name, Adam, and also more generically, like a person or a man. So context will decide, right, if it's a personal name or not. One way you can tell if it's not a personal name is if it has the definite article, like the man. A personal name will never have a definite article on it. The word gam is a conjunction here. Gam means also. Below that we have yad, which means hand. Yad, it's a feminine noun, and notice the dual ending yadim, which would be hands, and it uses that dual ending because, of course, people have two hands. So yadim, yadayim is how you pronounce that word. Below that we have a verb, yada, which means to know, yod dalet ayin, really common verb in Hebrew. Below that, there is a really important conjunction called ki. That's how you say it, ki. And it's translated that, because, or for. It's actually used in a variety of ways. It's probably worth looking at a lexicon to see all the different uses to get a little bit of an outline for that. So it always starts a new clause, which is helpful in translating to know that. So just really pay attention to that word. Below that we have the word all or every, which is pronounced kol, and then comments have tooth under this, so both of these are actually pronounced kol. In the upper left we have the word lev or levav. There's an alternate spelling there, lev or levav, and that's translated heart. Although it's broader than just like the organ. It's used for the organ in the body, the heart, but it also is used metaphorically to mean like the entire inner life of a person. So their heart, their mind, their reasoning, all of those are kind of go together in Hebrew thought. Okay, here we have an interrogative particle. If you want to ask a question, the question who, like who's on first or who did it, it's the word me. Who? Me? It's a very helpful way of remembering that. Who, me, is how that's pronounced. Then another personal name you might be familiar with here, Moshe, is the word for Moses. Then a verb here, Allah, ayin lamed hey, is the verb to go up or ascend. Below that we have Rosh, or the plural Rashim, and that means head or top. Rosh. And then probably one Hebrew word you already know is Shalom, which is the word for peace, also used in greetings in ancient Israel. And then finally, below that, the word Shem, or Shemot, is the plural. Notice the irregular feminine plural ending, even though the noun is masculine, and that's the word for name, Shem. Okay, our content for the week is, not for the week, but for this chapter, is primarily about word pairs. So in English and in Hebrew, you can use a noun to describe another noun. A noun that in some ways functions more like an adjective. And we use this of helping word in English to communicate this idea. So you could say a king, well, what kind of king? A king of peace. Or a man, well, what kind of man? A man of war. Think of how often we use that construction in English. Noun of noun. King of kings. Like this, king of peace. President of the United States. It's used all over the place in English. And that idea can be communicated, of course, in Hebrew as well. But what's interesting in Hebrew is there is no word of. There's no equivalent of this little word of in Hebrew. Instead, when that kind of relationship is being communicated, the two words are joined together with no word in between them, and it's called a word pair in Hebrew. Some other ways of describing this grammatical feature in Hebrew is a construct chain, or a construct state. So anytime you see the word word pair, which is the word your textbook normally uses, that's the phrase your textbook normally uses for this, a lot of other grammars will call this the construct chain. So word pair, construct chain, same thing. And you'll hear me use both of those terms. Okay, so how does a word pair work? In a word pair, you should translate the first word with an of following it, and then you put the second word. So look at these examples here. This first example, you just have two nouns put together, kind of squished together. The word word and the word king. Devar melech. And that's translated a word of a king. A word of a king. Or bat melech, a daughter of a king. Or ish milchama, a man of war. So you see how we just put that word of in between the two nouns. Now you may have noticed, wait a minute, there's some spelling differences in like the word devar, for example, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Okay, it's really important to know with a word pair how to determine definiteness if the word the is supposed to be used, because it's a little bit different in a word pair or a construct chain. This slide says construct chain. It's a little bit different than normal with this grammatical feature. So, for example, in the left-hand side over here, you have kol ish, which is a voice of a man. Kol ish. Well, what if you wanted to say the voice of a man? Not a voice of a man, but the voice of a man. So, here's the key point, key takeaway. In a word pair, the first word cannot take a definite article. You can't put anything on the first word of a word pair. So then the question is, how do you know if it's definite or not? How do you know if you should use the word the or not? And the way you tell is the definiteness of the entire word pair is determined by the final noun in the word pair. So if you look at the last word in a word pair, like here we have ha'ish, if that has a definite article, you need to translate the whole word pair with the definite article. So here this will be translated the voice of the man. The voice of the man. Because that final noun, what's often called the absolute noun, the final noun in a word pair, has the definite article. Or here's another example, Melech Eretz, a king of a land. See that final word has no definite article? If you put a definite article on it, then the whole word pair needs to be translated as definite. The king of the land. Or last example here, a servant of a king. Again, you put the definite article on it, it's the servant of the king. As a reminder, how do you know if a noun is definite? Well, there's three ways you can tell if a noun is definite. If it has the definite article, which we just saw, right? That hey plus the A-class vowel there. Or, we haven't covered this yet, but if a word has a pronoun suffix. So keep that in mind. We haven't covered that yet grammatically, but we will get there. If a word has a pronoun suffix, like this is the word my right here, malki, this would be my king, then that's considered definite. So you'd want to translate this, the house of my king. Or if it's a proper name, a proper noun, that's considered definite. So this would be Eved Shmuel is the servant of Samuel. Now, you may be wondering, especially with the title word pair, can you have more than one word pair in a chain? And the answer is yes. You can have multiple words. Most commonly in Hebrew, it's going to be just two words in a word pair, but you can actually have three or four. Very rarely are you going to have four or more than that, but typically two is the most common, sometimes three, very rarely more than four. So you can have a whole chain, and that's why some grammarians call this a construct chain, like this, where this is the servant of the brother of the king, or you might say the king's brother servant. So as we look at this first example, how do we know if it's definite or not? Well, we look at the final noun in the word pair, and here it is, and it has a definite article, so it's definite. So we want to use the word the with all of these words leading up to it. So the servant of the brother of the king. Or the second example here, can we look at that last noun? It's got the definite article, so we want to translate it with the king of all of the earth. Or, and this is actually a phrase in the book of Judges. This might be the longest word pair in the Hebrew Bible. I'm not sure. But we have all of the family of the house of the father of his mother is all one big giant word pair. Okay, now a word pair. Can you have an inseparable preposition or a preposition that is attached to the beginning of a word pair? And the answer is yes, you can. So here's an example. Baveit David is in. That first bait is the preposition bait, which is in the house of David, right? This is definite because David is a proper noun. So we want to use the word the, in the house of David. Or here we have the preposition kaf, like all of the nations. We know this is definite because there's the definite article on nations, hagoyim, like all of the nations. Or here's the preposition lamed, to the people of the land, or for the people of the land. Okay, now I talked about how there's some spelling changes that can take place, not with the final noun in a word pair, but the first noun in a word pair, sometimes called the construct noun. Any noun that comes before the final noun in a word pair can potentially have some some differences in spelling. Now, some words don't change at all. This is especially true with monosyllabic or one-syllable words like coal or shear. It's also true with segulate nouns that are accented on the first syllable. They stay the same. Melech. So that's not going to change if it's in a word pair. However, many other words are going to have, and the most typical thing that's going to happen is you get vowel reduction. So think of a word pair like this. You're bringing two words together and you're kind of pronouncing them as if they're one word. You're sort of slurring them together. And when you do that, that is going to cause some of the vowels, especially in the first word, to shorten, to make it, to kind of hurry that pronunciation to get to the final word. That's kind of what's going on here. So, for example, you have the word mishpat. So you have this final closed syllable. That long A, kametz, is going to, in a word pair, is going to reduce to a short A, patak. So it sounds the same, mishpat, mishpat, but that vowel is going to change. You have the word wilderness, midbar, goes to midbar, long A to short A. The word bain, sun, with a tsere, that kind of long E, goes to a short E, a segol, ben. And actually, this is by far the most common way you see the word son in the Hebrew Bible, because it's usually saying son of something, right? Son of Jacob, son of David. So you're going to most often see it in this form. Similarly, one of our new vocab words, the word all, kol, is almost always or most often in this shortened or reduced form with a short O sound, the kametz hautuf, because it's usually saying all of something, all of the land, all of the people. In some open syllables, especially often in the first position, like navi, this is the word for prophet, navi, you have a long A and an open syllable here. Those are going to reduce, if they're in the word pair form, they're going to reduce all the way to a vocal shava. Or if it's a guttural, it's going to reduce to a composite vowel, or a combination vowel. Here we have the hatef patach. And that's because gutturals can't take a vocal shava. Or you hear, this is an interesting one, the word word, you actually had both kinds of reductions here. This vowel, the kametz under the bait in that closed syllable, is going to reduce to a patach, a short A. And then the first long A in an open syllable is going to reduce to a shava. So davar, word of, is what that looks like. That's also a very common way of seeing that word as a word pair. Okay, one other change is with feminine singular nouns. So feminine singular nouns typically end in the kametz he, as we've seen, like Torah, it's feminine singular noun. What happens with all of these words is when they're in the word pair form, that final he will strengthen to a tav. So it's Torat. Like the law of Yahweh would be Torat Adonai. Or here's the word for queen, Malka, goes to Malkat. Or the word year, Shana, goes to Shanat. So you have the reduction also happening in the first syllable there. Okay, one other, there's a couple more changes that can take place. Some monosyllabic nouns, like the word father that you've learned, right? Av, or brother, achi, or ach. You're gonna get some vowel reduction happening in the first syllable, but then also you get this extra Hirik yod, I-class vowel followed by a yod, that is just part of what's called the construct form, or the word pair form of that word. So if you want to say the father of, say Jacob, you'd have to use this form, Avi. Avi Yaakov is the father of Jacob. Or here's brother, Ach goes to Achi. That would be the brother of, and then put the name in, right? Achi Yaakov, the brother of Jacob. Or here's the word mouth, peh. That hey is actually going to drop out and goes to p, mouth of someone. So there are some spelling changes like that can take place. Finally, this is the last one for this lesson. There are more changes with word pairs, but for this lesson, this is the last one we're going to talk about. And that is what's called diphthongs. We have certain words we've learned so far, like bayit has what's called a diphthong, an AYI diphthong. So you have a ptak, yod, hirik, and it's pronounced bayit. But what's interesting is you don't actually see it in this form very often in the Hebrew Bible. You usually see it in the word pair form, which looks like this, bait. The AYI diphthong reduces, when it's in a word pair, to a tzere yod, bait. And that's why it sounds like Beit Lechem in a word like Bethlehem, house of bread, or Beit David, the house of David. So this is by far the most common way you'll actually see it in the Hebrew Bible. Here's another noun, mavet, which is the word for death. This is called an AWE diphthong, where you have kametz vav, segol. That will reduce to a holem vav, mot. And there's a whole class of nouns like that as well. And that is it for this lesson.